So, but literally, like, you guys can see me, but I can't see you. In other words, like, if I start picking my nose, like right now,
Yeah.
you can do that. And
Yeah,
I feel like
you know I have a 5-year-old, so you can't scare me with your nose picking.
You've got a professional nose picker in the
I
house.
mean, yeah.
All right. I won't try to one-up him. I'm just gonna leave it there. But it does feel like a strange sort of power imbalance. So maybe I should just like shut off my video.
Whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Okay. All right.
So are you guys doing full lockdown?
No, I just went out today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how long had it been since you've been out?
Oh, I've been out in some way pretty much every day.
Okay.
Pretty much. Either to get to the grocery store or to take a walk to the park and socially distant, meet a friend socially distant style task, or walk around the block sort of thing.
You'll go to the park and like hang out 6 feet away from somebody.
Yeah. I met with my friend James. Would sit on the grass and 6 feet away from each other. So how about you guys? Are you leaving the house?
I am. So I live alone, but I co-parent. So my quarantine is basically my house and then fifth of a mile away at Elizabeth's house. So I actually see probably a lot more people than some would, because I see her and Langston, and she now lives in a duplex with her best friend and her best friend's wife and their 2 kids.
Oh, wow.
So I have like this kind of like I'm pretty well covered for company.
Yeah, you've got your extended quarantine family.
So what about you, Jeff? How's your quarantine going? Are you guys like keeping tight?
Yeah. We actually took a pretty long walk the other day, and not realizing how many people would be out, but we're gonna initially just take a walk to the park and then come back, but I live pretty close to Golden Gate Park. So we were gonna walk over there and then turn around and come back. But then we got there, it's a nice day. There weren't that many people out. We just kept walking into the park. At some point, we realized we were like halfway into the park and that it wouldn't be that far to go to the other side. And there's this bagel place on the other side of the park that we're talking about going to. And then we kept running into more and more people as we were walking there. And we got there and the bagel place was closed. So we went across the street to a sandwich place that was open, takeout. At this point, I was pretty nervous about being out. And then these like teenagers walked into the sandwich place. And I was like, oh shit, these kids are not adhering to the code of social distancing at all. They're all within a foot of each other, and they're all walking past me within a foot of me. And I started getting really nervous and being like, I don't know if it's worth it for this Italian combo sub I just ordered. Fucking get the plague from one of these little pieces of shit. And then we walked back into the park. There's just people everywhere, and nobody maintaining a 6-foot radius from each other at all. Like people running around with their dogs, fucking kids all over the place. We went for a run a couple times around the reservoir. That's just a couple blocks from my house. But like there aren't that many people up there, so it's easy to maintain 6 feet. The park situation, that really freaked us both out. That was a pretty rough day.
I gotta say, I've observed, because Oakland's a city of people with boundary issues, but I've noticed that there's been like a pretty good practice of keeping like a respectable. I mean, obviously here and there you can't do a full 6 feet, but people try to adhere as closely to that as possible. To their credit around here.
Yeah, I feel like in the Mission, it's been. I mean, I see a lot of people out in the street, but I feel like they're either like couples. I mean, occasionally I'll see a group of more like teenagers and stuff not doing that, but mostly it's been, I think, pretty well respected. And apparently this a similar dynamic or something, similar dynamic happened with the Spanish plague or the Spanish flu, right, in 1918, where they thought they had beat it over the summer, and then everyone went back to work and went back to their normal lives, and it flared back up again in the fall. That's when most of the deaths actually happened. Yeah, millions died. 50 million people.
Yeah.
So what are you drawing?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because yeah, to the theme, to
Uh-huh.
the purported theme of the podcast, like, it's artists and their day jobs and how you bridge the gap between your creativity and your need to make a living. But now, like, it seems like half the people are unemployed, and both you, like Jeff, you work as a server, and Justin, you work as a teacher at CCA. Like, you guys are both out of work now. Like,
No, I'm lucky. Like,
oh,
CCA has navigated everything. We're navigating all of our classes online for the
okay.
rest of the semester. On Monday, actually, it's spring break right now. On Monday, I'll have to get my whole course up online and continue the semester. So I'm still getting my paycheck.
Good.
Yeah, but Jeff, you must be in a much more precarious sort of situation.
Yeah. It's I was laid off.
What, laid off, or is it just like while the restaurant's closed, or?
Well, it's officially. I got a notice this week that I am officially laid off. Initially our manager was like, we're gonna try not to have to lay anybody off while this is going on. But then it became apparent that, like, well, now the law is that restaurants can only be open for takeout. So all of the staff, the floor staff, was laid off. And I think just the salaried members of the staff are coming in to facilitate the takeout orders. I filed for unemployment as per my manager's instructions before we even closed down. And I haven't got my first payment yet, but I know I was approved for, just barely enough to keep paying rent every month.
Yeah.
So theoretically, knock on whatever passes for wood at IKEA, I'll be okay for at least a couple of months. I have a little bit of savings too. I am treating it as an opportunity to try to drum up more freelance work and just generally get more comics work done on my own, which I have been.
Yeah.
And Justin, how long did it take for CCA to kind of figure out how to move things online?
Well, we'll see, right? Because they closed the campus, and then right before spring break, and we've had now spring break, and we're coming back this week, so it's gonna all we shall see. Right now, I'm struggling with VoiceThread, trying to take my lectures and figure out kind of a Reader's Digest version of them, and slideshow, and then add video of me talking about the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And then I'll do some Zoom meetings with my students as we do crits. I'm changing up the homework so it's all kind of digital comics as opposed to print runs of mini comics. And then I'm also just kind of letting go of, they were clear, like, look, it's not your job to create a fully robust online course that's the equivalent of equal to your normal class. Like, you can't do that in this amount of time. So basically, I'm like, we keep our eyes on the learning the kind of learning outcome, desired outcomes, and then just work from there, right? So, it's going to be ad hoc and it won't be optimal, but I'll get the class done in some way. The students will have a final project. Part of, though, I'm worried is that it'll be interesting to see how many of the students actually still participate. Some of my students are from China, for example, and if they've gone back, they'll be behind firewalls, digital firewalls.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so they can't communicate on certain platforms. And other students, maybe, some students are probably going back to their families and are just bored and ready to do this. But some may be in precarious situations, may not have internet access the way that they should. I mean, who the hell knows, right? So it's going to be, everything feels up in the air. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week.
Yeah, to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah. So Fred, you're still freelancing.
Yes.
And so has your life changed much?
I don't know if you guys caught that Chris Ware comic in the New Yorker where it was about like, hey, everybody, welcome to the life of a cartoonist. And yeah, I've worked as a contractor for, I don't know, like 15 years now. And it's increasingly been remote. And so this is pretty par for the course for me. I just started another contract. Like I had there was a period where it looked like I might actually get like full on hired in at a company, and that didn't happen. But they continued to use me as a contractor. And then this thing, the COVID-19 happened, and that wiped like all of that work has disappeared overnight. Like I went out and I shook the bushes and like got like one or two new illustration clients. And company that I did the animation work for came online with some new projects. And then I got a full-time contract, which had to get delayed a few days because my start date was the same day that they did Shelter in Place. So they had to FedEx me a computer. And like
Jesus.
It's a really very different experience from anything I've ever had. I mean, I've gone from this place where I had a lot of downtime and to now trying to figure out how I'm going to get everything done, which is a good problem to have. I'm not complaining, but so it's been different, but it's still like all the goings on have, I've been drawing a lot because it's like an interesting time. Like there's something in me, and I'm sure in something in you guys where it's like, this is weird, this is how I process things. Like, I use my art to like figure out what the hell's going on. So like it's been really inspiring in a very odd way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm finding I'm definitely cranking out a lot of pages, which feels really good. Working on this graphic novel I've been working on for a while, but so it feels kind of a bit like almost like a weird sort of artist residency because I'm not supposed to be anywhere else.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm also having this odd feeling where like the things that my graphic novel are about felt kind of weighty and important before. Like I'm drawing this scene right now about this character's meth addiction and I'm sex worker rights and all these kind of things that I feel strongly about. And suddenly it all feels kind of mundane and pointless. Because we're facing down something so monumental, and I'm not actually doing work about that.
Yeah.
I think the issues that are coming to light in the midst of this crisis, though, are things that tie into that. Like, there are, the people that are most at risk are the same people that are at risk under the circumstances you're talking about.
That's a good point.
The people whose lives are going to be most destabilized by this are the vulnerable populations that you're already writing about.
That's true. I mean, certainly this is all triggers for people who have addiction issues, and sex workers are getting hit really, really hard right now.
Yeah. When I said this, I was particularly thinking about the numerous fundraising attempts I've seen for sex worker relief since this started.
But I would love to do things directly about I know some people have, but like Tim Pham is apparently doing some like coronavirus kind of daily or whatever, weekly whatever kind of memoir comics and diary comics rather. My style is too slow. Like I wish I had a fast, easy, loose style like a Ralph Koenig or like a comic strip artist. I don't. I have this kind of more realistic thing that just takes a lot of time to make each panel. But if I had I wish I had a loose style, and then I could just like do like a 4-strip daily kind of thing. It would be a 4-panel daily strip or something. That would be really fun, and I think we'll get at what you were talking about, Fred, like really directly having our art kind of directly speak to the moment.
Yeah. If you want to take a hack at developing a style that's a little more immediate and a little more like gestural, I recommend drawing with your left hand.
Really?
Huh.
Yes. Because you can only, or what, I don't know if you're right-handed. I'm assuming because you're not, I've never seen cloven hooves on you, so I'm assuming you don't use the devil's hand.
You haven't been looking.
But yeah, using the left hand, because when I'm hanging out with Langston and he likes drawing, he's left-handed, but like I'll be drawing with him or doing the alphabet or something, and because he's so new to this, I'll use my left hand because I want it to be more rough-hewn and more less intentional. And I've done that before when I was trying to simulate how I drew when I was much younger, because I wanted to like show like these kind of crazy pages that I would draw, like the way an 8-year-old draws or a 7-year-old draws. And I found the shorthand into that was using the left hand, because you can only do so much, and you will exhaust yourself thinking about what you're drawing and trying to make it perfect, so you just go with what you can.
That is awesome. Now, what would you like? How do you deal with like handling lettering and stuff?
I don't know. Maybe letter with your right hand, because you do want it to be legible, but like getting your breakdowns, I'd recommend the left hand.
Wow, that is super cool. I'm gonna try it. Cool.
Yeah, even if you don't wind up using the left-handed stuff as the finished product, it'll just get you to loosen up a little bit. When John Buscema was head of the Marvel bullpen in the 70s, and he saw that, like, if he saw people drawing slowly, he would take their pencil away and hand them a bigger pencil. Those big flat wedge-shaped pencils. Yeah, like he would just make you draw with a bigger lead, and that forces you to put less detail.
Yeah, I've done that with brushes before. Done like big thick brushes on larger paper just to kind of force myself to stop, doing intricate line work. Geoff, I mean, your style is super tight also. Like, are you able to do that?
My approach towards it has been, I don't use the angles that I would otherwise use.
No perspective shots.
Yeah, I don't exactly. I don't use as much perspective. If I do, it's more, I use isometric perspective a lot more than I use linear perspective. Whose work has actually been a huge boon to me in terms of developing the style is John Kirschbaum's.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say that his stuff isn't detailed and doesn't have its own kind of miraculous technique to it. I try to draw everything more simply. If I do have to draw a wide shot or like a building or a cityscape or something, I try to draw it head on, and in this kind of flat, cartoony way. And I've changed the proportions of the figures as well to make them a little bit more cartoony, so that the whole thing makes more sense. So that's why like the people in my diary comics have bigger heads, because it's my concession to making them look as cartoony as the backgrounds have to look.
I wondered about that because I saw that stylistic choice in those comics, and I thought it looks great, but I didn't realize that it had an ulterior motive that way.
It's partly to like the cartoony nature of it sort of undercuts the seriousness of the content sometimes. Like, it's something I started employing when I was like writing about my dead parents and people from my mother's nursing home crying at her funeral, but they all have gigantic heads. So.
I just thought that your mother was at a retirement home on Easter Island.
I'm imagining those big heads, but with the breathing apparatuses set up just underneath their noses. Wow. I gotta write that down. Easter Island retirement community. That's a comical image.
Fred, are you actually doing comics about the current situation directly, or no, right now?
Both directly and indirectly, yeah. Like I found, because I keep trying to run away from memoir, and then I keep winding up back in it, because it's so instinctual to me, and I'm so self-obsessed. So I've been doing some stuff that really just relates directly to it, and then some other more sketchbook stuff that is kind of a little more off the wall, less pointed. Yeah, did you catch I sent you the New Yorker, right?
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, that was great.
And that was also very loose. Like, did you do that fast?
I did it fast. Like the art director liked it, and she's like, I really like this, you know. And if an art director tells you they really like it versus like, yeah, this is fine, send this to me. Like you have to make. She's basically said, you know, I will print this or I will put this up as soon as you finish it. So I just dropped everything and pounded it out. And also I'm dealing with limitations because my art studio is closed. So my tools, like all my quills and like my brushes that I ruin at least once a year by not cleaning them, they're all at my art studio that I can't get into.
Wow.
So all I have around are, you know, I'm trying to remember what I even drew it on. Oh, I cut up some like old watercolor paper that I used to have around the house, and I have my brush pens that I just sketch with normally. And like, so I had to kind of make do with what I had. It was fun to do that though, because like I couldn't get so wound up in it. You know, I had to like really make it more immediate.
Yeah, I really like that style. It's really effective.
Yeah,
you.
I was surprised by how similar the one that wound up going up on their website looked to the initial sketch. So
Yeah, me too. Actually.
now I know why, because it was the initial sketch. Basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, I gotta figure this out because so what, in terms of process, would you like you were doing those kind of loose pencils and then you just go in with this whatever kind of inking implement you had, or are you still doing pencils and inks, right?
I am still doing pencils, yeah. Yeah, but there wasn't normally, you know, it's normally like a kind of a 3-step process, and it was just pencil straight to the paper and then ink it like it just had to go because I don't have the tools. It's really made me kind of stop screwing around as much as I kind of like to.
So do you think these will be lessons that you'll take with you when this shit is over?
I certainly hope so, because when I was working as an editorial illustrator and did, you know, 50-something illustrations a year for the weekly and like however many others I was doing, if you look at the beginning of when I first started working for them in the, you know, 2008, 2009, and then where I ended up whenever they fired me, you just had to find the efficiencies and you just couldn't mess around. You know, you had to figure out like, how do I get this point across efficiently? And once I returned to doing comics, all of that illustration stuff came with that. So I have to imagine, you know, if this is working, and I feel like it is, why not continue that? You know, why not fold that into how I continue to do things?
That's really inspiring.
You know, I do what I can.
Is there a specific tool that you found is better for this sort of? I mean, I know part of the point is that you don't have access to your tools, but have you kind of like stumbled across like, oh my god, a Bic pen is like the best thing, or like something weird like that?
I really like the Pentel brush pen, and I can't remember the specific model that I'm using, but I've kept those around, and they're actually fairly durable. They get to be a little runnier as they get older. That throws in some unpredictability in there, which also is kind of fun.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's as long as it doesn't like completely ruin a page, like having to deal with like the limitations of the tool and like what might happen kind of makes you work better within those constraints. I remember like Les Paul started to lose the movement on his left hand, I guess. And he said that as he, you know, lost his 2 fingers, like one at a time, they just went away. He said it just like really opened him up to things that he wouldn't have thought about. You know, he was this virtuosic guitarist. So he's using all these like technical skills, but as he got limited, it forced him to be more creative than he normally would have been. And I kind of feel like that's the thing with the lesson from this is like, yeah, you can make do with what you got, you know?
I think about Charles Schultz too, when he started getting all the trembles. And
yeah,
the
he just became much worked it into his style.
Yeah.
So Justin, what is the graphic novel that you're working on?
Yes. What you guys have heard before, we may have even talked about it in the last podcast.
It's the same thing you've been working on, right? With the body of water that runs underneath the armory.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Been working on it ad nauseum. It's just another thing. Like I got a grant from I think I might have told you guys. I got a grant from the city to work on it. But I told them, you know, I think trying to impress them or something. Like I told them that I was going to finish the graphic novel. That was, you know, not even freaking close, which is not a problem. I'm just, but it does, like, I was feeling a little bit guilty about not having more done from, considering that I took money from the city. By the way, Jeff, you should know this, that the city is giving grants to struggling artists right now. London Breed got, I think, put 2.5 million, I believe, for San Francisco artists who are struggling.
As of the COVID-19 crisis, or
also you should be applying for their normal grants, but right now specifically for COVID-19.
Yeah, that is something I should.
But
thanks.
If anyone who's listening to this podcast that falls into a similar category, San Francisco is doing its best to, have funds available for struggling artists during this crisis. You have to kind of prove that your livelihood is being affected as an artist. And there may be other cities that are doing this. I don't know if Oakland is or dear listener, wherever you may be living, check there's oftentimes more stuff kind of hidden away in government programs than you expect.
Yeah, there's money out there. We just don't, we're artists. We have our head in our work.
Well, especially cartoonists. We're not used to being considered for this sort of thing, right? I mean,
yeah, we have very low self-esteem.
Yeah, and if you're a professional sculptor, well, yes, part of your, what you do is to make all these sort of grants, right? That's kind of how you work. Whereas it's never been available for cartoonists before, so few of us know to look there.
Yeah.
Well, I think even the artiest of us art cartoonists still came up thinking of this as a commercial medium. So
right.
Don't think of it as being we don't think of it as having access to the same resources as like capital A fine artists.
Yeah. Yeah, because we make so much money in the marketplace. Yeah.
So have you guys? I'm assuming you guys are on the different mailing lists for the different conventions around the country.
Yeah, some of them.
Because I've noticed a lot of them are canceling.
I was supposed to go to TCAL, and that ended.
Yeah.
There was I was going to be running a panel on Howard Cruz, his legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to run one in probably at Comic-Con too, but I imagine Comic-Con's probably not gonna happen. But they're still saying that it will. But
is that something that you could I don't know, like do and put on YouTube? Because it feels like that feels like something that should just be in the world, regardless of if there's a live audience for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's a really good idea, actually. We're pitching it. We're going to pitch it to New York Comic Con, to Emerald City when they kind of, because they canceled, but they're going to do. I think they're going to postpone it until was it August or something? So there's a few places that we can do this.
Okay.
Who is we?
Was that?
Who is we? Who are you doing this in conjunction with?
So, I mean, I've been working on this documentary film about the history of queer comics. So part of this is that we have footage of Howard. He's a central linchpin of the film.
Yeah.
So that's part of what it is. But First Second is reissuing his kind of magnum opus, Stuck Rubber Baby.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, finally, and it's a beautiful artist edition, like really spectacular. Robin Chapman is the editor on charge.
Of course, yeah.
She's been amazing. But the big problem with previous editions is that they've been printed too small. Beyond that, they have these beautiful segments in the back of like Howard talking about his process and the history of the book. A new foreword by Alison Bechdel. Just some really wonderful pieces about the kind of. It really feels like a big legacy edition, right?
That's awesome.
It's finally being given its due, which is wonderful. So I've been working with them also in pitching these tribute panels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really do. I mean, I was very excited about, as tragic as, obviously it was to lose Howard, just this idea that he was finally getting some of the attention that he deserved, and to be part of that and help make that happen was really exciting. And It's yet another, kind of terrible thing that the crisis is thrown into jeopardy. But I mean, I agree. Like, even that's a really good idea to put something up online. Like, even do kind of like gather a Zoom meeting of make a panel that way and just do it.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I feel like it's kind of a lost opportunity for, especially the conventions with a lot of resources to hand, to not be taking the aspects of the programming and making them available online and stuff.
It's going to be interesting also to see how this, all of this stuff, I mean, there's so many different ways, but like how this stuff carries forward. Like, I mean, are we going to be learning things about virtual meetings and panels and educational opportunities and stuff, and that will continue past this moment? I mean, in my case, I'm worried. Like, there have been kind of half joking about how teachers shouldn't do this too well, because we actually do want to get back into the classrooms, and I can imagine some of these schools being like, this is a great way to cut costs. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Now, what do you think about the comics industry? Like, I'm worried that so many of the comic book shop owners that we know operate on such a razor thin margin. Like, I'm worried that this stuff is going to even open back up.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. I was just in The Escapist, and I was chatting with him, and I was like, yeah, what's new? And he's just like, yeah, just trying to stay in business. And that's always the case for a good half of these shops or more. So this is potentially really catastrophic for those guys.
I know that the comic store in the neighborhood where I grew up, it's called the Joker's Child. They have been taking orders and then doing curbside pickups. I read a update from Leaf that this is going to be the last week that Diamond even makes deliveries.
Yes, that's true. I've heard that.
But I don't know. That curbside pickup model, I think, is probably a good way for a lot of retail places to be dealing with what's going on right now.
Yeah. They're doing that at Dr. Comics, Mr. Games.
They are?
Yeah. But yeah, but the problem is, though, like, and especially if Diamond starts, weakening like this, because they are a monopoly, how does the industry, even if like a third of the comic shops close, we're already 2 new comic shops, and what does that do to the industry? Like, how do comics get out there? I mean, I maybe it makes more people buy them digitally, and so platforms like Comixology become more important and can carry more of the weight of the industry, but I don't know. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, there's nothing. Wow. I mean, that would be, especially in a kind of weekly serialized sort of industry like the mainstream comic book world. Like, I just don't. Yeah.
The floppies world.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody that would be in a position to would have the resources to take it up on the level that would effectively replace Diamond. I think maybe
distribution used to be handled by networks of local distributors, but that doesn't exist anymore. All of that would have to kind of regrow as an ecosystem, and that's not going to happen quickly.
Yeah.
When I think of the people that are of the stuff that's really reliant on Diamond, it's mainstream stuff. It's Marvel and DC and maybe even Image. Although I know Image has a bigger bookstore presence than they did at their inception as well.
It's the floppies, right? I mean, the only people doing serialized floppies anymore are, as you said, Marvel and DC, Image. And I agree, Image has a better bookstore presence now, but they still do, Walking Dead is still a floppy, right? That sells.
Yeah.
So I haven't read. Well, I mean, I never read comics in general, but I haven't read anything from Marvel or DC in a million years. Like, what is their ecosystem even like now?
In terms of like where they sell stuff, or
yeah, I mean, what are they doing? What have they been doing for the last 25 years? Can you catch me up?
I mean, they still do. The reality is that they're both parts of major conglomerates that they only make 5% of their money on actual comics. They make the rest on merchandising and licensing to television, movies, and lunchboxes. their IP is really tied in with comics still, right? So they develop their IP still in comics, and then transfer that over to the lunchbox into the movie deal. So it's kind of their process is still comics focused.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a really easy way to test out a given storyline, a given character. You do it in this, for a very little amount of money for a very discerning audience that will tell you very quickly about whether it's successful or not. So it's still very much part of their model, but like...
it's not hard, though, to imagine companies like Disney or Warner Brothers saying suddenly, like, this leg of it is not profitable anymore. Maybe they keep it up from a bookstore angle, but...
But I agree. It seems like they should be able to figure out another way to operate their business. Yeah, I mean, Captain America and Thor are going to continue in some way or another, but certainly like the little like.
Thank Odin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't kill Thor. He's a god. He'll be here. I mean, COVID-19 is bad, but it's not Ragnarok.
Fucking geek. I'm more worried about little kind of creator-owned image titles like what happens to a Bitch Planet or a Sex Criminals or Oblivion Song is something, I don't know, like all these cool little things that are great little IPs, but they don't have movies behind them.
There's X-Men or whatever, which the majority of the people that are reading it in floppies. And then there's the stuff First Second puts out that, it bypasses the floppy stage entirely. There's that middle ground occupied by, I think The Walking Dead was maybe the biggest, the thing that tipped this over into a more widespread model. It started, I think, with a lot of Vertigo books. They come out as floppies, but most of the people that know them as the graphic novel collections. And I think stuff like Bitch Planet and Paper Girls and Oblivion Song, which was already optioned as a film, that lives in that gray area between dependence on the direct market and people reading it in graphic novel form.
My students, for example, had no idea that Watchmen was initially serialized.
I have a similar, though not exact, experience with Langs because he's been watching Justice League, and I keep calling it Super Friends, and he's like, "Why do you call it Super Friends? It's Justice League." And I'm like, "Well, son, when I was your age, we had a show that had those same characters, except it sucked."
Except for those Alex Toth character designs.
Yeah, how did Johnny Quest end up looking so good and Super Friends just looked drecky?
Yeah, absolutely dreadful.
You really think Johnny Quest looks that good?
I haven't seen it in like 30 years, so.
I imagine it doesn't age very well.
I think the animation was probably equally cheap.
And probably the racism probably doesn't really age well.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Right, good point.
Has it turned into fine racist wine, or is it just racist vinegar?
Well, all right. I actually should go, and I gotta thank you for the tips and all of that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Loving you both. You take care. Stay safe.
You as well.
I'll talk to you guys soon. All right.
Okay, take it easy.